investigators and authorities still consider this to be one of the most impossible cases to ever happen, but yet it still did happen. One hot afternoon, a young girl's lifeless body was found disposed in an open field in rural Pennsylvania after she had been missing for 3 years. But that's not even the part that'd leave you puzzled. Here's where it gets interesting. Someone exactly like her was found alive in an orphanage a few days before then with a 90% match of her physical and biological traits. You may want to pause whatever you're doing to pay attention to this one because it is really a mystery. But before we begin, if you are a true lover of mysterious murder stories, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I'd like to know. Emily Ward was no ordinary teenager. She was a musical genius, popularly known and admired in her all-girls boarding school. But her promising future took a dark and unfortunate turn the day she vanished, a few moments before her long-anticipated performance at the school's annual talent show. Today, we look at the mystery behind Emily's disappearance, her supposed return, and the disturbing secret her mother had kept from every single one alive. At just 13 years old, Emily Ward was what many would call a rising star whose love for music exceeded her age. With her innate talent for the violin, she had a rare gift that charmed anyone who heard her play. Each note she produced carried beauty and harmony that left audiences breathless, as if she poured emotions into the strings. Music was more than just a passion for her. It was the language through which she expressed herself when words failed. "She's natural," her music instructor often remarked. "You don't teach a gift like that, you guide it." Emily's journey to musical brilliance was born out of a place of solitude as she grew up in a household torn apart by conflict. Her parents' marriage was filled with tension and incessant arguments until, finally, they couldn't take it anymore and filed for a bitter divorce. After the split, Emily moved in with her father, Michael Ward. He was a well-regarded high school basketball coach known for his disciplined approach both on and off the court. Despite his busy schedule, Michael did his best to be present for his daughter, though it was clear that parenting didn't come naturally to him. His new wife, Peace, made sincere efforts to create a warm, welcoming environment for Emily. One of the things she tried to do was decorating Emily's room with posters of famous musicians and often sitting through her rehearsals to applaud. But no amount of encouragement from Peace or structured stability from Michael could change the fact that Emily's heart belonged to her violin and the dreams it carried. She often practiced late into the night, perfecting every piece of music as though her life depended on it. Her determination was fueled by the goal to wow the audience at the upcoming talent show hosted by her prestigious all-girls boarding school in Pennsylvania. The talent show wasn't just any event. It was a platform where the best performers from across the state gathered to showcase their gifts. Emily attended Mayspring Academy, an exclusive all-girls boarding school deep in Pennsylvania countryside. The academy had a reputation for nurturing some of the most brilliant minds and creative talents in the state. Also, their vibrant arts program was a place for young creatives who dreamed of leaving their mark on the world. The talent show wasn't just a friendly showcase. It was a prestigious event that drew attention far beyond the school grounds. But on that fateful Friday evening, something went terribly wrong. The air was filled with excitement as students, teachers, and guests occupied the grand auditorium of Mayspring Academy. Backstage, her music coach, Mr. James Whitaker, stood beside her, offering final words of encouragement. "You've got this, Emily," he assured her with a confident smile. "Just like we practiced. They're going to love it." Emily nodded, returning a small but determined smile. She took a deep breath, adjusted the grip on her violin, and prepared to make her way toward the stage entrance. When he was done encouraging her, he left to join the audience in witnessing the show. But then, that was the last time anyone saw her. One minute Emily was there, steady and composed, walking toward the spotlight that awaited her. And the next minute, she was gone. At first, no one realized something was wrong. Stage managers assumed she'd momentarily stepped away to collect herself or to calm any pre-performance jitters. But as minutes ticked by and her name was announced with no sign of her on stage, unease crept through the auditorium. Whispers spread through the crowd. "Where's Emily?" some of classmates murmured from the front rows. Then panic suddenly erupted. Staff and students combed every inch of the rehearsal space, dressing rooms, and nearby hallways. But there was nothing. No trace of Emily. The school's headmistress tried to maintain composure, addressing the crowd with a forced calm. "There seems to be a delay with one of our performers. Please bear with us." What happened between that final moment when her coach left her and the time she was to come on stage for her performance? Who, if anyone, was responsible for taking her? The night that should have celebrated Emily's brilliance instead became the starting point of a mystery that haunted the academy and her family. The school management reached out to authorities immediately, and in no time, flashlights and police sirens were breaking through the boarding school. Given the school's location, the idea of an outsider sneaking in unnoticed seemed almost impossible. The security cameras around that area were put off that day, and the entrances showed no unauthorized visitors. Investigators started their investigations quickly and narrowed their focus to those already on campus, starting with Mr. Whitaker, the school's respected music coach who happened to be the last person confirmed to have seen Emily before she disappeared. "She was right there," Mr. Whitaker told officers during his initial questioning. "I gave her a few words of encouragement, watched her head toward the stage, before leaving to join others in the hall, and that was it." Despite his protests, the circumstances made him an obvious suspect. His familiarity with Emily, access to restricted areas of the school, and close proximity to her disappearance painted a picture. Authorities searched his office, rehearsal room, and even his on-campus residence. Police confiscated his phone, combed through his messages, and scrutinized every aspect of his personal life. But nothing incriminating came up. No evidence, no suspicious behavior, no motive. Mr. Whitaker's record was clean. Although he remained cooperative through the multiple rounds of questioning, he was getting frustrated with each passing interrogation. "If you think I'd ever hurt that girl, you're wrong," he insisted. "Music was her life. I wanted her to succeed." As the clock ticked and no leads came forward, the strong case against Mr. Whitaker was dissolved. Investigators were left with the fact that they had no idea what had happened to Emily. Could this have been a well-planned kidnap by someone who knew the school's schedule and layout? And if not the coach, then who? The search grew colder as days turned into weeks, but the questions remained hotter than ever. What really happened to Emily Ward? 3 years after Emily Ward vanished without a trace, life at Mayspring Academy and her small hometown had moved on, but not entirely. Her name still stayed in quiet conversations and unsolved case files. Then one day, a child welfare officer made a report to the authorities. He randomly saw an old publication about a search for a girl, and she looked exactly like someone in an orphanage he knew. In his mind, he thought it was probably a case of a staged death, so he wanted to inform authorities about it. According to the girl's arrival date he motioned, it matched the exact week Emily had vanished without a trace. He said she was brought in by an unidentified couple. Authorities moved as fast as they could with their hearts already racing with disbelief. The girl reportedly had a striking resemblance to the bright and talented musician they had been searching for tirelessly. Could it really be Emily? When the reunion finally happened, Michael Ward, her father, stood frozen in shock as the girl before him that greatly resembled his daughter stared back at him blankly. "It's me, Dad," Michael whispered to her. "Emily. It's me." But the girl's eyes showed no sign of recognition. She said her name wasn't Emily and she didn't know who he was. She didn't recognize Michael. She didn't know her stepmother, Peace, who stood teary-eyed beside him. Also, she had no memory of Mayspring Academy, the talent show, or the violin that had once defined her very being. Her habits, interests, even her way of speaking had all changed. That was the strangest twist of all. How could a girl who lived and breathed music suddenly despise it? Her hands, once poised with graceful mastery over a violin, now trembled at the mere mention of notes and melodies. If this was truly Emily Ward, then what had happened to her during those 3 missing years? And if it wasn't her, then who was this girl who shared Emily's face but carried none of her memories or passions? What was supposed to be a triumphant reunion quickly turned into a nightmare no one could have imagined. Barely when they had begun to adjust to the miraculous return of the new Emily, fate delivered another unthinkable twist. On one ordinary morning, a farmer whose land was somewhat close to Mayspring Academy was clearing the bush near the edge of his field and noticed something unusual. According to him, he saw a patch of wild grass that was tangled with vines and dirt. He took a step closer and found an outline of a young human body. He raised an alarm and immediately called the cops. When forensic experts arrived, they carefully unearthed the remains of the dead body and pieced together the fragments of what time had damaged. Despite the condition of the body, DNA testing was definitive. The remains belonged to Emily Ward. The news sent shockwaves through everyone's spine. How was it possible that someone matching Emily Ward's genetics was found alive, returned to her family, and at the same time, a buried decomposed body carried her exact genetic markers? At this point, detectives were scrambling for explanations, but none made any sense. Had there been a catastrophic error in the initial DNA test that confirmed the girl at the orphanage as Emily? The lab insisted there was no mistake. Some theories began to circulate wildly. Had the girl who returned truly been someone else entirely? Or could this have been an elaborate scheme designed to mislead authorities and the family? The possibilities were overwhelming. The public demanded answers, but none seemed to come forth. What happened in those 3 missing years? And if the body in the field was truly Emily Ward, then who was the girl living under her name? As part of the investigation process, Emily's biological mother, Linda Ward, were visited by authorities to answer questions around the birth of Emily, and after a series of questionings, she finally opened up to a truth. She said when she found out she was having twins, she arranged for a private adoption without telling anyone about it, including her husband, and handed one of her newborn daughters to a childless couple who wanted a family but wanted secrecy. No legal paperwork was filed, no trace left behind. It was just a silent transaction. Her husband, Michael, had raised Emily completely unaware that another child, identical in appearance, existed somewhere out in the world. For over a decade, everyone had believed Emily was an only child. At this point, the questions multiplied. Was the girl found at St. Rose's Orphanage Emily's long-lost twin, mistaken for Emily herself? And most disturbingly, was the decomposed body discovered in the field that of the real Emily? Investigators revisited autopsy reports and the forensic timeline. The body's decomposition matched the period Emily had been missing, adding weight to the grim possibility that she had never survived past the night she disappeared. This new revelation of Emily's twin prompted investigators to return to where the story first seemed to take a hopeful turn, right at the orphanage. They combed through the orphanage's admission records to trace exactly who had brought the surviving twin there. Their search led them to a couple listed under the names Richard and Diana Collins, but discovered that the couple were murdered right in their home one evening. The timing of their deaths was mere hours after they delivered a child to St. Rose's Orphanage, which was far too suspicious to be dismissed as coincidence. When authorities asked one of the orphanage staff about the couple, she said they seemed normal and didn't say much. They said they just were unable to care for the girl anymore. They began constructing a detailed timeline, tracing every event from the day Emily vanished. They mapped the hours leading up to her disappearance, the arrival of the Collins couple at the orphanage, and the brutal murders that followed. Most people speculated that the events were part of a well-planned scheme. But by whom? And more importantly, why? Authorities considered every possibility. Had Emily's disappearance been staged by someone with a personal vendetta? Or was this a tragic intersection of unrelated events? Was there a single mastermind pulling the strings and hiding in plain sight, keeping investigators chasing endless shadows? After years of tireless investigations and mounting frustrations, authorities finally reached a significant conclusion that Emily's biological mother was innocent. She had no direct involvement in the murders or the strange events that unfolded after her daughter's disappearance. There was enough evidence to clear some names, but nowhere near enough to solve the case. Why did Richard and Diana bring the twin to the orphanage after spending 13 years with her? Did someone ask them to? Why were they brutally murdered the same day they brought her to the orphanage? Was it a calculated move to silence them, or just an unfortunate coincidence? And then there's the question that haunted investigators the most: what really happened during those missing 3 years? Who was responsible for Emily's abduction, And how did it connect to her twin sister? Some mysteries simply have a way of escaping justice, slipping through the cracks no matter how deeply investigators dig, and this seemed like one of such. This case may be unsolved, but the story isn't over. Maybe one day, justice will finally have its say. Until then, the haunting questions are still by the corner waiting for answers. Now it's your turn. What do you think really happened? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so share your theories in the comments below. And if stories like this keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another strange and compelling case like this.